Hey everybody, it's Rory from ANSgear, and we've got some Ninja Regs up here. But the reason the Ninja Regs are up here is because we have a rebuild kit for them. So if you have an issue with your rebuild or your Ninja regulator, a standard regulator or ultralight regulator, and these are the newest version of the regulator, the pin valve style, the new pin valve style regulator, this will work for that kit. And it will work for either the new, this is going to get confusing. So I have a new older style body and a newer style body. So the new older style body has the pin valve on the top, the large pin valve, but it has the smaller distribution body down here where the one-way fill valve is held in place or seals in place by Teflon. The newer version has a slightly thicker body and the one-way seals with an O-ring. So you don't need any kind of thread tape or thread sealant on these. When you screw them in, there's an O-ring underneath them that seals the one-way. Just the one-way connection to the body. It does not, that O-ring we're talking about does not make the O-ring or the check valve seal inside. That's a one-way O-ring on the inside. This one seals the actual unit to the body. I know that might sound confusing. And that's not what this kit is for. But if you can see, I've got two different size bodies here. And if you're wondering why, that's why right there. This has the OFV fill valve. So the O-ring fill valve, and this has the standard fill valve on it. All right. So that out of the way. This kit right here is for new style pin, standard ultralight 4.5K regulators right there. So look what we got right here. What's inside the bag? What's in the bag? So we've got our piston, and our piston comes pre-assembled with O-rings on it, so you don't have that O-ring just floating around inside there. You've got this white Teflon O-ring right there. Looks like that. So this is a hard O-ring, and I'll show you where that goes. You've got a couple shims here, so if you need to adjust pressure inside your regulator, you can use those shims. You've got your two set screws for the outside to get the bonnet off. And then you have a one-way O-ring right here, as well as a 1.8K burst disc. Now, typically, what fails inside the regulator is the reg seat, which is this little ball that you see on the bottom of the piston right here. If that fails, it chips, it gets dirt stuck on it, any kind of thing happens to it, it will cause the regulator to overpressurize because it can't seal properly. And then the 1.8 burst disc will blow to vent the tank, which is what it's supposed to do. So if that happens, you need to rebuild it. So you need to replace the piston because that ball is not replaceable. You need to replace the entire piston. And that comes with the O-rings on it and then the couple other things right there. So if your one-way valve here or here is leaking out the end, not around the bottom, but out the end, then you'd use this O-ring to replace the O-ring inside. If your, one second, let's get an Allen key out real quick. If your regulator is leaking from the very top, it's coming right out of the end here. So you've got this on your tank, you put some air inside of it, and then psh, you get a leak coming out of there. You need to replace this O-ring, and I'm going to show you where that is when I disassemble this. So I'm going to take these two screws out. I'm going to unscrew the bonnet. And as with any kind of regulator work when it comes to tanks, make sure before you disassemble anything on a tank regulator that your system is degassed, that the tank has no pressure in it in any way whatsoever. Never want to disassemble a regulator under pressure. All right, so we can pull that out. So you can see in the bottom down here, there's some shims down in there. These are these shims sitting right here. By adding or removing shims, you can increase or decrease the output pressure this way, coming out of the bottle. The more shims you add, the higher the pressure. The less shims you have, the lower the pressure. If you remove all shims out, your pressure is at about 400, 450 or so. And then by adding shims in, you can get up into the 850 range right there. If you need to go higher than 850 PSI, then you want to buy the SHP Pro Reg. You don't want to just keep adding shims into this and trying to boost the pressure up high. It's not meant for that. So 850 is really the cutoff, and then you can mess around with the shims inside there. All right, so that's the lower section. Here is our piston. I'm going to grab this thing and pull it out. Right there. Underneath our piston, you can see we have our pin and our spring. These go in here. So this is our same piston that we have right here. This just has this main spring on it. So you'd put that one on there, drop that in. You'd take your pin and spring, stick that in there, and you'd throw that back in. Now, if you were having a leak out of the top, like we were just saying, if you look at that inside there, there's an O-ring that sits down in the base right there. That O-ring seals right around this beveled part of the pin and doesn't let the air come out until you push the pin down. So if you're leaking out the top, that white O-ring that we had right there, that's the one you're going to replace. And that's pretty much it. What other thing? Oh, the burst disc. If your burst disc goes bad right there, you're going to take that off, take your burst disc and put it on there, and then make sure you torque it down to the appropriate foot-pounds. I think that's listed on here. Minimum of 55 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds, to put that on there. So you want to make sure that that's tight to the point where it seals up, because the burst disc does not rely on Teflon or a sealant on the threads to seal it. It relies on it being pressed against a flat surface to make a seal. So you'll make sure that that's tight to the right specifications. And that's it. It's a very simple rebuild kit. We have our new piston with O-rings in place. We have our upper pin O-ring for leaks out the top. We have our one-way O-ring for leaks out the one-way. We've got new screws and a new burst disc. And that's it. Very, very simple. So if you have the standard or the ultralight regulator, the new style pins, and you need to rebuild it, here's the rebuild kit for you. Very simple to do. Just make sure your tank is degassed and you're safe while doing it. They're available through the website. Pick yours up today and order it through ANSgear.com.